Hello, everyone. This is kind of a impromptu stream. I've been thinking about this since I saw the article this morning, so I thought I would share the news regarding James Bond. Well, not James Bond, 007. They've made some changes, or they're going to make some changes here, and to the franchise. So I'm going to see if I can share the screen here. Can I do that, or do I have to click this, that, or the other thing? Oh, I do this so not very often of sharing my screen. I don't know how to do it anymore. I'm presenting to everyone. Okay, well, I'm going to assume you can see this, because if you can't, then we got a problem. But I'll put a link to the article in the description on the off chance I'm not doing this correctly, because again, I don't screen share very often. This is an article from The Sun. And I should note that so far this is all unconfirmed movie news, so take it with a grain of salt. But I find the implication interesting. 7-Up, Bond 25 will see actress Lashana Lynch take over from Daniel Craig to become the first female 007. Actress Lashana Lynch, I'll get that down eventually, will take on the iconic spy role of 007 in Bond 25, according to reports. While titular hero James Bond will still be portrayed by Daniel Craig, 51, writer Phoebe Waller-Bridge has introduced a major twist to the long-running franchise. And if I'm remembering correctly, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the creator of the, what was it? It's that series. Oh, for crying out loud. I'll figure it out. They might mention it in here somewhere. She will introduce the Captain Marvel star, 31, as the current 007's replacement within the Secret Service. Well, not the Secret Service. I thought it was MI6 or whatever. But anyway, while a decision has yet to be made who will take over from Craig in Bond 26. Okay. An insider told the Mail, quote, "There is a pivotal scene at the start of the film where M says, 'Come in 007,' and in walks Lashana, who is black, beautiful, and a woman." Thanks for letting us know that. "It's a popcorn-dropping moment." Well, not now that you've ruined it. Bond is still Bond, but he's been replaced as 007 by this stunning woman. The source also revealed that Bond will be brought out of retirement in Jamaica to thwart a global crisis. It comes after it was revealed Christoph Waltz will reprise the role of Blofeld in the flick after he was spotted on the set at Pinewood Studios. The star, 62, played the head of a shadowy organization of villains in 2015's Spectre and is back for a second outing, despite previously claiming he wouldn't be in the next flick. The Mail's Boz Bomingboye, I might be fucking that up too, broke the news on Twitter, posting, "Exclusive, hello, Mr. Waltz. We've been expecting you," etc., etc. Okay, so what little we know about this at this point, well, let's see what we can sort of take away from this, such as it is. I will give them credit. Okay, I will give the movie makers credit that they're not doing the more cynical thing, I suppose, that you might expect these days, and that is to simply gender swap the character. Start a new franchise and just call her Jane Bond or something like that. I'll give them credit for that at least. And now I've got an ad playing in the background because I'm trying to get to my chat. So if you hear a little tinny voice in the background, that's what that is. I have to wait through an ad. Now, can I skip this? I can skip this. Yay. Okay. So I'll give them credit for not just starting a new franchise or a reboot or something else and just saying, this is the new 007 and her name's Jane Bond. Okay. And there's nothing in the article to say that 007 going forward will always be this character. It could just be a plot point in this movie that she is the new 007 and he's been retired, and then they have to team up. However, I would not be surprised if this is a passing the torch or handing over the mantle transition movie from one character franchise to another. Now, we don't know that for a fact yet. There's nothing in the article that says so. So I'm not going to speculate on that unless or until we see that happen. But I would not be surprised. Now, obviously, on both sides of the equation, let's say, there's going to be controversy. There's going to be the outrage preppers who are getting ready for people to be outraged about this. There are going to be the people who are actually outraged about this and start, doing the little flame wars on the internet. And then there's the rest of us who maybe not the rest of us. Maybe it's just me, but I gave up on the Bond franchise about 4 or 5 movies back. I mean, whatever the first Daniel Craig one I know was Casino Royale. I forget how many have been since then. It's either 4 or 5. So let me give a little background to where I'm coming from here. I was a huge fan of James Bond growing up. Okay. Huge fan. All the marathons they play on TBS of the old Sean Connery and Roger Moore and George Lazenby, Her Majesty's Secret Service, and when Pierce Brosnan became Bond, I thought it was pretty good for the first. Like GoldenEye was great. Everything after The World Is Not Enough was okay, and then it all kind of went downhill because it became too cartoony. And I know that's saying something about James Bond if you look back at the older movies, but it became too cartoony. And here's why I haven't been a big fan of the Daniel Craig iteration or era, let's say. Not to say that the last couple of Bond films themselves have been that great to begin with. Okay. Spectre was all over the place, whatever, on that theme song. Oh God, I knew something was wrong as soon as I heard that theme song. There's a certain expectation you have about a Bond theme song. I think the most classic one being Goldfinger. Shirley Bassey just belting it out. Skyfall, when what's her name did Skyfall. That was a great Bond song. I thought it was a great setup. The movie was but at least the song was good. You could say that. But here's where I became disillusioned with what they were doing with Bond. And it all comes back to Jason Bourne, or the first Bourne movie, but the Bourne Identity. When the Bourne Identity came out, and if I'm not mistaken, let me make sure I've got this right because I don't want to be telling stories out of school. I'm pretty sure the Bourne Identity came out before Casino Royale. Let's see. Bourne Identity was 2002. Casino Royale was 2006. Yes, well, I was pretty sure, but I'm getting old, let's just say, and I want to make sure I'm not getting it off. Anyway, when I saw the Bourne Identity, my very first thought after seeing that movie was, this is the new standard for an espionage/action movie. When there is a next Bond movie, because at that point we were between Bonds at that stage of the game. When there's a next Bond movie, this is the movie they're going to have to look to, not to duplicate per se, but to get that same sort of grounded, sort of brutal feeling without a lot of flash. Now, that sounds counterintuitive to James Bond. James Bond is all about the tuxedos and the casinos and the sequin dresses and all this other thing. And that is part of the Bond world, certainly. But I wanted them to bring it down a notch or 3 while still retaining sort of the elements of the character. And I thought the Bourne Identity kind of set that new bar. So when I saw Casino Royale, and in the first 15 minutes or whatever, you have James Bond running across a crane and jumping down into this little base or something and taking a machine gun and shooting a gas tank and killing 20 guys at once. I was like, okay, we're done. They learn no lessons. I was hopeful for that little flashback sequence at the beginning of Casino Royale in black and white when he's like, assassinating that guy. I thought, ooh, okay. But then we're right back into the cartoonish nature of James Bond in a world where I think tastes had matured a bit. There were certain things to expect from Bond, but I thought they didn't learn any lessons from the interesting way they did Bourne Identity by taking somebody who had to improvise, who had to go through the world as it was. And even though he was doing things that were over the top, they weren't exactly beyond the realm of possibility. But running across a crane, jumping down, blowing away 20 guys at once by shooting a gas tank, I was like, okay, well, we're done. And I know that wasn't the entirety of Casino Royale. There are some good things about Casino Royale. I mean, Mads Mikkelsen was very impressive. The ending scene, you know, where they killed off his love interest, which hasn't been the first time that's happened. Okay, Majesty Secret Service, but it was a takeoff from usual Bond progression of things. It wasn't all bad, but every Bond movie after Casino Royale just became more bloated feeling and less interesting, and like the character motivations here. There, some characters are more interesting than others. Javier Bardem in Quantum of Solace, he was an interesting character. His motivations were interesting. His interactions with Bond were interesting, but still, So I've been sort of disillusioned with Bond, or at least the franchise, for a while. But this is very interesting to me that they're going this direction. It's not surprising, however, given the writer that they got. What's her name? Phoebe. What was it that she's known for at this point? Sorry. She's the writer of some show, like, was it Killing Eve? I think it was Killing Eve, wasn't it? Something like that. I'm pretty sure. Let me make sure I'm not. Again, guys, I'm still kind of waking up. Yeah, Killing Eve, the American drama Killing Eve, which admittedly I have not seen, so I don't have any comment on Killing Eve. But I heard a lot of rumblings about her taking on certain projects, that she would be introducing a lot of feminist / social justice stuff into the mix. And obviously, assumptions can be made about this particular script and story element. But I don't want to make any assumptions about it, because ultimately it's going to come down to, is it a good story and is it a compelling character? Because it is a new character. It's not, hey, everybody, this is Jamie Bond and we're rebooting the franchise. Is it going to be a pass the torch film? I don't know, one way or the other. I would not be surprised if it is used as such, depending on its success, depending on the popularity of this new character, but we don't know if that's going to be the case. What I do have a big sort of question about, or I think will not help the new character, is the fact that she is brand new. Okay, if you're going to have a replacement for Bond, an up-and-comer, whatever else, it would have been better if they had established this character like Q, like so many others, like Felix Leiter, all these other characters that are classic Bond characters, if they'd introduced her 2 films back, even as just a supporting character. You know, just have her there, have her useful, have her do something, but not be the main focus, right? And then by the time we get to this film, oh, but instead it's like, here she is. I keep thinking back to Tango and Cash in that, final fight scene where Brian James, I think that's his name, Brian James, the guy from Blade Runner, he says, it's like, you haven't met my friend before, but he's been dying to meet you. And then suddenly, bad guy henchman number 72 jumps in that we literally haven't seen in the movie, but suddenly wants to fight and has to be a big enemy for us to watch be taken down. And here's a new character. Never saw her before. Ta-da! Now, let's speculate for a moment, and I am going to speculate for a moment, if they do hand off the mantle of 007 in perpetuity, let's say, to this new character. And as far as I know, we don't know what the character's name is yet. But it won't be James Bond, obviously. Now, I don't know how you carry this franchise forward unless you have a debut for this character that is just out of the park. You got to knock it out of the park. You got to establish a completely new and interesting character that can carry on the legacy of Bond without being Bond, because obviously every film after this, and again, I am speculating that they're handing off the role of 007 to a new character. I am speculating. I want to make that very clear. Nothing's been confirmed yet so far as I know. But if you're going to hand off the legacy of 007 and James Bond and that type of film to a completely different character, and especially of a completely different gender, given the character of Bond, given the tempo of Bond films, you had better, like I say, knock it out of the park. You got to have somebody who's got personality, who's got a catchphrase or something that they can latch on to, some kind of, element to her that makes you interested in watching what she's going to do next. Because part of Bond that made him appealing for the longest time, and I know all the people these days are going to hate it, was his masculinity, was his rough and tumble, sardonic, brutal, pragmatic way of moving through the world and getting the job done. Violent at times, compassionate at others, always masculine, always, being the hero. Now, you remove the masculinity from the character. If you make a conscious effort to do that, you don't have James Bond anymore, right? But again, this is a new character. So if you're not going to focus on the classic Bond elements that made those films appealing to most people and have for decades now, what do you do? Well, I don't know. But that is a big burden to take on your shoulders as a writer, and that's a big risk to take as a producer of such films if you're going to be conceivably retiring a famous character and starting a new franchise effectively. Because, there's the closest thing I was thinking about was Atomic Blonde. Okay, you've got a superhero female, superhero in the loosest sense of the term, because James Bond is a superhero, but he's supposed to be a super spy. There's supposed to be a little bit of grounding to what he's doing, especially these days. But Atomic Blonde, you had a female protagonist who was the action shoot 'em up bang bang star, and she took on physical fights with grown men and won. Okay, and not coming away without being damaged, but she won. Did she win? And I'm putting air quotes around this, realistically. Well, in movie terms, sure. Can you maintain that same suspension of disbelief over a franchise? Because part of Bond's, sort of appeal was the rough and tumble nature of a lot of his fights. The fist fights with the heavy, whether it was Jaws or Odd Job or Mr. Jinx in the last couple of films. Even though Bond didn't always win those fights, that he could at least get one over here, there, and otherwise on the characters, whoever it was believable. If you take a beautiful, slim woman and put her up against the heavy, is that always going to be something you can sell without her? And if she does win, without having her win as a result of environmental factors and not her own physical prowess, because, physics and sexual dimorphism. And I understand it's a movie, but there's got to be a sense that this character can hold their own reasonably. So unless you put her up against, continuing female bad guys in a physical sense, or it's always gunplay or something, I don't know. But those are problems, and I do say they are problems they're going to have to solve if they want to retain the audience that's expecting a certain je ne sais quoi from a 007 movie if the character is not Bond. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat because people have shown up, and thank you everybody for showing up on this completely unscheduled and impromptu stream. If you guys have anything you'd like to say or other points you want to make, by all means start putting in the chat now. I don't have a whole lot else to say on it because there's not much to be known. I don't care about the gender or race of the character. I just care that it's a good character. If they are thinking of passing the torch, like I say, they have Phoebe Waller-Cates and the people involved in this, and the actress especially, Lashana Lynch. Boy, I don't know. Would you want to be the person with that kind of expectation on your shoulders, regardless of what the circumstances are surrounding your casting? Would you want to have that on your shoulders? You're going to be potentially taking up the franchise mantle of James Bond going into the future. Yeah. The other thing I'll be curious to know, is this a character from any of the Bond novels that existed prior to this, whether there be Ian Fleming or any of the people who've taken up that series since then, because a lot of people have done James Bond books since then. Yeah, but unless, I don't believe so. I mean, someone can correct me. I don't believe Lashana Lynch has been in a Bond movie to this point. So if there's an established character of some kind that she's just picking up for, I don't know. And I think that will do a disservice to her entrance into this movie. But who knows? Again, it'll all depend on the strength of the character. Let's see. Milkman Dan says Atomic Blonde was an entertaining movie, but completely unrealistic. I agree, Scribelight. Well, again, James Bond movies are unrealistic, and they've continued to be so. Like I said, I was hoping after A Bourne Identity that the Bond people would take a note and try to still make Bond cool, but dial down the cartoonish nature of some of the stuff that he's able to do and does, etc. It didn't really do that in Casino Royale, at least not to my personal preference. Again, just my opinion. And in the movies since then, there's been such glut and trying to tone down the Bondness because it was politically incorrect and make him more emotional and have all this. I don't know. It just felt like a much more diluted Bond, a watered down Martini, if you will, over the last couple of films. So, Eric Peters says, Scribelight, speak to me in French like a fish called Wanda. Speak me to me French like I je ne sais quoi, like that kind of thing. Cara mia. I think it's Italian. Anyway, Mr. Monopoly, will she be a lesbian or a trans woman? I don't know. Again, all I know is this supposed release in an article from The Sun. I do not know whether it's accurate, and I don't know what the details are beyond that, say for the actress that they've mentioned. So this could all just be a completely, academic exercise on my part. It could be just a rumor that comes out that ends up being not true. Or maybe she's not the actress, but it will be a female actress that becomes 007. Who knows? I'm just sort of going off of what little that I know, and again, doing a little retrospective in my mind of the Bond franchise as I remember it. Ryan Rawlings, Scribetron 5000 is streaming. Oh, am I roboting? That's great. Eric Peters says, Scribelight, sorry, I mean Russian. Oh, I only know like one Russian phrase. Хочешь яблочный пирожок, гражданин? Or grajdanka, if you're talking to a girl, apparently. That's all I know. It's, would you like an apple cake, friend or citizen or something like that. Let's see. Evil One says, if Jaws blast a woman in the face, the movie would be over. If Jaws would have blasted a man in the face, good chance the fight is over as well. But a 90-pound woman versus a 300-pound man, come on. Yeah, again, there's going to be a point at which, I don't know, they're going to have to figure out some way where she is still, impressive to the audience and to the world they create around her, that they don't just keep putting up paper tigers in front of her to knock down. So I don't know how they're going to do it. I'm curious to find out how they're going to get around that issue, given the genre, given the mantle that they'll be giving to her. UK Beast 89, Scribelight, Bond 25 looks to be OHM Secret Service. Writer says she will explore Bond's grief after loss of his wife. Also, Blofeld is in it. Yeah, I know Blofeld's in it. Although I wasn't really sure what he was doing in the last movie or what his intentions were. There's a fan theory out there that the Bond movies basically ended as soon as he was in the chair and getting lobotomized, that everything after him being stuck in the chair and the needle coming towards his skull was, whatever. He was basically like the end of Brazil. If you ever saw Terry Gilliam's Brazil, there comes a point where it's, well, I don't want to ruin it, but maybe I just did, that it's all fantasy. It's all just a fever dream, and that none of it actually really happened, because the events after that point in the movie where he's strapped in the chair are a bit too convenient, that he's suddenly able to escape all this stuff that wasn't escapable before. I kind of like that fan theory. Apparently that's not canon, so what do I know? Ryan Rollins says, not roboting Scribelight, I just refer to you as Scribbletron 5000, Satsu as Mecha Satsu, and Monkey as the Gimp Chimp. Oh, geez. Lethal Outdoors, she better be a sidekick. She won't be. She will be, prediction. prediction, she will not be a sidekick. She will be the like he will be the mentor and she will be the student. She will not be without skills, but he will teach her something. She will earn his respect by the end of the film, and he will feel comfortable in her taking over his responsibilities, or as a 007 or as a 00 agent, whatever. That's my notion. You know, it like, I don't know why, because it's not going to be the same thing, but the first comparison that comes to my mind is Star Trek Generations, you know, where Kirk kind of approves Picard to take over the movie franchise in a way in that movie, even though, you know, Shatner, or I should say Kirk, dies kind of stupidly. I hope it's not that weak, you know, but I guess we'll find out. Let's see. Dectran says she'll be a cadet. I don't think cadets get 00 ratings. 00 means you have a license to kill. You don't just get handed that as a novice. She will have been again, I can't even imagine what kind of exposition they're going to have to give this character. Again, it would have made more sense if they'd established her 2 films back as a supporting character and gradually increased her screen time. So by the time that she walks through the door in this one, it makes sense, or at least people are familiar with her. They're going to have to do that deal where James Bond is looking over her dossier, or M is going to have to recite her achievements or whatever. It's going to be that kind of scene of exposition where we're told how badass she is. Or we will see a scene of her in operation ahead of time and then be told of her qualifications. But if the popcorn dropping moment is to make any sense, then the first time we see her has to be when she walks in the door as Bond's replacement as 007. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to walk that line of surprise while also not just spending 5 minutes telling us how awesome she is before we even see her in action. That's what's going to be an interesting thing about it, right? You know, unless she shows up in the preview scene and sort of like the prologue, she's there assisting Bond in some way that shows him up in his final mission or does something, and then she shows up later on walking through the door. I don't know. Like I say, there's a lot writing on how they introduce this character and how they establish her first and foremost, and then how she behaves and performs over the course of the movie as to whether or not you have a character that is interesting enough as a character and strong enough with audiences that they want to see more of this character going forward. And that is a big challenge. It doesn't matter who you put in, whether you put in a man, a woman, black, Asian, doesn't matter. If you're going to have somebody come in and become the new 007, that's a rough one either way. Mr. Monopoly, Scribelight, will it be political? The movie? There's always politics of some kind in James Bond. You know, like if this happens, then, you know, there'll be war between countries, or, you know, the price of oil will drop, or Silicon Valley is going to be nuked, and then all the computer parts will have to be farmed out to Zorin. Or there's always some political angle to the movie. Is bringing this character in, a black woman, to be Bond's replacement, a political move? Social politics? I have no doubt. This is a statement for sure. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you care or not, it is a statement, certainly by the author, who has made no bones about her social politics in the past. So certainly. Now, will the character be strong enough to surpass any of those concerns? Again, don't know. We'll wait and see, I suppose. Darnell Parnass. Goldfinger mentioned 008. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other 00s, like Goldfinger 006, played by Sean Bean. There's a whole lot of 00s. If you're a 00 agent, from what I understand of the lore, that means you are one of the very few who have a license to kill in the British Secret Service, or MI6 or whatever. Lethal Outdoors, will she bake cakes and mop? No. She's going to be as much of a all-on agent all the time kind of thing with problems as Bond. Will she be implied alcoholic? Will she be promiscuous and rough and tumble and everything else? I don't know. Probably not. They'll want to at least make use of her femininity. She will probably charm, susceptible men, or use her feminine wilds to show how weak men are and how stupid they are, or how much they're willing to let their guard down for a woman, etc. Which, let's be honest, that's why they called them honeypot ops. That's a term that you will find otherwise. It's when you use flirtation, sexuality, that kind of thing to attract someone into an espionage situation or to give up information. It's not an unknown tactic. So that being used in espionage isn't necessarily untoward. I don't know, but I'm assuming that's going to be in there somewhere. She'll be in some cocktail dress, right? Now here's a prediction. We're going to have to, one of the things that they're going to have to do is, or I should say, one of the things they're going to feel compelled to do is to distinguish this character very starkly from James Bond. So everybody knows we're not doing a Bond clone. This is her own character. She'll go to a casino or a bar or something like that, some fancy club, and she'll be asked, "What are you drinking?" Or someone will offer her a martini, right? And she'll eschew the martini. She'll ask for like a Jack and Coke or something, or vodka on the rocks or something. Anything but a martini. There will be some moment where she has to eschew a martini. There will be some moment where she has to introduce herself, and I would hope they wouldn't be as lame as to say, and again, we don't know what the character's name is, but for just, conversation's sake, let's just say Jane Smith. If she says Smith, Jane Smith, I'll know everything is falling apart. But they're going to have to address her introducing herself. They're going to have to address her drink. And she may have the same gun as Bond, the Walther PPK. Because it's a relatively small gun. She could conceivably conceal it on her person, etc. So all those Bond tropes, or at least the major ones, I predict they will have to address in some way with the character alluding to them or outright denying them, making a physical / verbal effort to distance herself from the Bond character. Okay. I predict. I don't know. Depending on how they execute it, it could be funny. It could be poignant. I don't know. But I assume that is going to happen. Milkman Dan, Scribelight, most importantly, though, will she receive the same pay as the male Bond? I would not either be surprised if they made a joke about that somewhere in the initial scenes of her character showing up. I don't think any social commentary, either about women in the workplace or the misogynistic nature, the toxic masculinity of James Bond, will be out of bounds to contend with in this film. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying it's highly likely that it'll happen. Milkman Dan says, Agent 0077 cents to the dollar. Ooh, funny. Let's see. Deck Trans Scribe, have you seen the BBC miniseries on Bonds creating Ian Fleming starring Dominic Cooper yet? No. I heard of it. I haven't seen it. I don't have cable TV. I don't have BBC. So I don't know if I'll ever see it. Mr. Monopoly says, Scribelight, will she not be a Mary Sue? Again, that's up to the writer. If she can do no wrong over the course of the film, if she's just, defying expectations of what a Bond type character would do the entire time, if we have the Last Jedi of the James Bond series, well, that's what they're going to make, I guess. But obviously, that's not going to be the big headlines about this. We're going to see the exact same kind of stuff we saw with Ariel for the live action Little Mermaid. We're going to see similar stuff that we've seen conjured out of nowhere for the new Terminator movie coming up. It's going to be, oh, the online trolls hate this. The closet racists hate this. The misogynists hate this. Whether or not there's actually any overwhelming tidal wave of such rhetoric coming from one side or the other. And it's already started, trust me. I haven't checked Twitter in the last 10 minutes, but the outrage preppers going like, oh, I can't wait to see the comments on this. I can't wait to see all the racism come out about this. Frothing at the mouth, waiting for it, But again, and credit where credit is due. It is a different character. We always say if you're going to bring in a character that is unlike an established one, don't just gender swap, make it a brand new character. Now you could argue, well, 007 is James Bond. You can't have that moniker without it being James Bond holding the title. And that's a fair argument, given the establishment of the character. But it is a name, or as I say, it's a designation, not inherently a character. Now, honestly, I think it would have made more sense, and people would probably accepted it more, if she was 008, right? Right? Or something. And then the torch was passed. And so you move away from the 007 thing, but I think that's just far too iconic. I don't think they could do that and get away with it without... But it would be its own thing at that point. You could say that James Bond is off in the distance somewhere, or that number's been retired like a jersey in a basketball team or something. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. But if they're calling her 007 for at least part of this film, again, that's a heavy burden to carry. So, yeah, I don't have anything else really to say about it. Again, we don't have much information other than the rumor, the unconfirmed report, etc. But yeah, that's what I thought. Just thought I'd get that out there because I was thinking about it when I saw the story. Again, I'll put the link to the Sun story in the description for anybody watching this in the future that wants a reference point. It might be updated with new information by the time you read it, because it's probably a developing story at this stage of the game. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just cautiously curious. I haven't been excited or interested in the Bond franchise since Casino Royale, honestly. So if they create a really interesting character, maybe. I mean, having a female protagonist does not bug me. As long as it's an interesting character, Ripley, Sarah Connor. A movie people don't talk about that much, but what I really like was Colombiana, with was it Zoe Saldana? Yeah, sorry, I kept my brain wanted to say Gamora because I associate her with that character so completely now. But yeah, Colombiana. I'm looking forward to the Black Widow movie, even though I'm kind of skeptical about the whole prequel thing, but maybe they'll do it well. I couldn't care less about the gender of the main character as long as the character is interesting, as long as the character has an arc, as long as the character is a strong character. And I don't mean strong in the sense of physically strong. I don't mean in the sense that they always win. Strength of character comes from, overcoming hardship. That's strength of character. When you're put to the test and you overcome a difficulty, you overcome an obstacle. Sometimes having to make the difficult choice to get to the right conclusion or the best conclusion you can come to. That's a lot of things people seem to confuse about the notion of a strong character, that they have to be, I don't know, emotionless or something. You can have a relatively stoic character who is still a strong character because they overcome hardship. It doesn't mean they have to be that way. But it also can't mean that they just achieve everything without effort. That does not make a strong character. That's somebody operating on God mode. So if you want to know what the strength of character is in overcoming hardship, just what was it, the second episode of the Daredevil series on Netflix where he has to go rescue that kid? If you haven't seen the Netflix series the Daredevil series on Netflix, watch at least the first 2 episodes of the first season. And if by the end of the second episode, you are not looking at Matt Murdock and the character of Daredevil with a little bit more respect in your eye than you might have had prior, holy cats. Now that shows a strength of character. So I hope they have that with this character. I hope they give her something to do that causes the character to earn the potential of taking over the series. Because I would like to see fun movies with good characters. I don't care what they look like. Honestly, I don't. And you might say, oh, methinks thou doth protest too much, scribe. Well, these days, I don't know. You tell the truth about what you think about things, and people think you're virtue signaling or you're covering up for your, hidden hatred or something. I guess, sincerity is in the pudding, as it were. So, I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys for showing up. Sorry I wasn't, sort of broadcast ahead of time or telegraphed. I just kind of did it on the fly. And yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point on Lords of the Night. And if I eventually see the film, I'll probably do a review. But we'll see. Anyway, guys, have a good rest of your weekend and take care.